You are more than enough. Black women talking about their experiences, their negative experiences, not only in the workplace, but also on our journey to get our professional degrees or credentials. So just to talk about this, because many of us are highly accomplished, we have degrees, we have credentials, we have all these things, but we have experienced a number of situations where the message is that we are not enough, even though we know clearly we are enough because we wouldn't even been in those spaces. So we're here to talk about these experiences and to talk about how to pivot from these experiences, because when you're encountering them, you may start internalizing the message that you're not enough, even though you know that you're enough. So then you might start self gaslighting yourself. So we are going to have an open conversation about this. Again, this is very common for us. I know that I've experienced it. I know that the Black women clients I have in therapy and coaching have talked about that. So we're going to have an open conversation about this. I'm so excited to be here with my Spelman sister,
Hey,
Dr.
y'all.
Natasha. So I
Hey.
will have Dr. Natasha introduce herself, and then we'll go right into the conversation.
Oh, greetings, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Kimani, for having me this evening. I am Natasha Brewley, also known as Chef B, Dr. Chef B. Some people say you need to use that Ph.D. You need to tell people you did the thing.
You did the thing. Yes.
Yes, I am. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I actually have a PhD in mathematics education, master's in mathematics or applied math, MBA in finance, and I actually am now a holistic health and wellness coach, raw and plant-based chef. And I'm super excited to share why I pivoted. But that's me. That's what I do. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, originally from Guyana, South America. Grew up in Brooklyn, have two boys, all the things.
And a proud Spelman woman.
And
Okay.
I'm a proud Spelman woman.
Yes, we are. Yes, we
Absolutely.
are. And I just want to just ground our conversation in something, Natasha, because when we think about these experiences that we have in academia as well as in the workplace, that if you are not really knowing who you are and what you bring to the table, that could be devastating for you. And so I just want to just say to Spelman that I appreciate the experiences that I had there, because that made me feel that sense of confidence and knowing that I'm around all these other brilliant Black women. So when I did encounter situations outside of Spelman, I felt confident, right? Like, what are you doing? Like, I know what I'm coming with. So can you speak a little bit about that? Let's start with that.
Yeah. So, gosh, Kimani, I tell you, like, this is a very powerful platform because I think we just bury so much of the
Hmm.
bad experiences, the negative experiences that we have.
Hmm.
And then like you just keep moving. You have to move
Yeah.
forward, right?
Yeah.
So it's only until someone asks you the question where you have to kind of dig deep. You're like, oh no,
Hmm.
nothing. Then you're like, wait a minute. This happened and this happened and this happened.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like almost like me too,
Hmm.
it's a me too situation.
Hmm.
You forget or you just bury it.
Yeah.
It's only until the moment of really having to think through just your time and
Hmm.
professional work and
Hmm.
all that's happened. Like,
Hmm.
gosh, I have been slighted and didn't even
Yeah.
think about it. I just kept moving forward.
Yeah.
So just to, kind of give you that. But I remember specifically when I had just finished my master's in mathematics.
Hmm.
And y'all listening, I was one of them girls. I was trying to go back to New York and teach mathematics at my high school. I had such a great experience at my high school. You talked about support.
Hmm.
Oh man, I was like, I'm going back there. I'm gonna go support these kids. That's what I'm gonna do.
Mhm, mhm,
Y'all, the ancestors and my mentors, they had other plans for me. All right.
mm,
So with that said, I actually started teaching at a private school in the city.
mhm,
And I was called to teach there because their population was growing and they had
mhm,
a few Black students, but they didn't have any Black faculty to
mm.
represent and support those Black students.
Mhm.
So, I was young. I had gotten my master's at 23. So I was
Wow.
very, yep, that's 23. So I've actually been in higher ed. I was there almost 30 years. When I'm 50 now. So, when I left, it was almost 30 years.
Mhm.
So I got it at a very young age. And so, I said, okay, I'm going to go and hang out with these kids, go support them. I actually did quite a bit of work there, started an organization. We took students on trips. We started,
Mhm.
math clubs, took students to abroad, all of the things, right? And
Mhm.
so I really felt like, I
Mhm.
demonstrated value, but, coming from, a master's program, graduating at 23, I was only making $27,000 at that
Oh
point.
my gosh, that's ridiculous.
27,000.
That's ridiculous, right?
And, I mean, we're talking the 90s, the late 90s, but still,
Mhm.
God, was good to me. I did not have a lot of student loans, and I still had them, but I didn't have a
Mhm.
lot because I'd gone to graduate school on fellowships.
Mhm.
But from
Mhm.
undergrad, I did take out a couple of loans, and so,
Mhm.
there was something hanging over my head.
Mhm.
And I lived with roommates because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to kind of handle things on my own.
Right.
So I remember I was there the second year and I was
Mhm.
wrapping up the second year and I really wanted to stay, but I was like, yo, 27,000, I need more money. Like this,
Exactly.
I'm doing all of these things for these
Mhm.
kids and we're doing
Mhm.
like there's a line that's blurred when you're in academia,
Mhm.
whether it's K through 12 or, when we say academia, you're really thinking about higher ed.
Mhm.
But the work spills into the evening, the work spills into the weekend. Like there is no really like you're on off. Like you are
Mhm.
always doing something. You have to
Mhm.
literally budget time off. You
Mhm.
gotta pray for those summers where you can,
Mhm.
do something for yourself. And unfortunately, I know some of this is changing in some states, but people in academia don't get paid 12 months out the year. People don't
Mhm.
realize that.
Mhm. Mhm.
We only get paid, I think it's 9 or 10 months out of the year. So you essentially have to make up your income in the
Mhm.
summertime. So that's why you see people doing like summer classes. They might take 2 or 3 summer classes because they're really trying to make money to pay their bills.
Right.
So just imagine if you have $27,000 and it's really a 9-month salary and it's spread over 12 months. So they do
Wow.
that. It's not a lot of money after taxes.
No, it's not.
It's
It's
just
not. It's not.
it's nothing.
Yeah,
So
and even though you had the commitment, right, to really help the kids, you have to recognize at a certain level, like, I can't survive like this.
exactly. And I
Mhm.
remember going into the headmaster's office and I was like,
Mhm.
I really want to stay here. I
Mhm.
really like it here.
Mhm.
But I mean, I really need a raise. Like,
Mhm.
this is not sustainable.
Mhm.
And, she's like, well, just give me some time. Unfortunately, we just don't have, a budget to give you more money. I said, well, think about it because I really can't stay
Mhm.
if I am going to be paid this amount next year.
Right.
Unfortunately, in, academic settings, there's not like we don't get pay raises in the same way.
Mhm.
It's just really a situation where people are overworked and underpaid.
Mhm.
It just
Mhm.
and a lot of it is overwork. So you may get a little small raise, but then the
Mhm.
workload increases significantly from year to year, depending on test scores,
Right.
depending on what the demands are for, the different organizations that kind of run that particular institution.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I left, I
Yeah.
didn't want to leave, but I had to go.
Yeah.
And, just, I'm one of those people that I'll leave, I
Yeah.
may not want to leave, but,
Mhm.
I'm like, there has to be something better.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that's an important point. We're gonna definitely touch back on that because the hope is that Black women get out of this conversation that when situations don't serve us, then we need to pivot, and you can pivot and do well, right?
Absolutely.
So we were talking previously about what was happening with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and the exchange that happened at that congressional meeting with Marjorie Taylor Greene, just being very disrespectful to her, but nobody really coming to censor this woman. And right, so the message is we could just do whatever, right? And then Representative Crockett came out and she started talking about not only the disappointment about that, but she also talked about no matter how many degrees and credentials and all these things she has, she is seen as a Black woman. And because of that, because of the negative messages or images people have of a Black woman, that they treat her as thus, right? So they treat her as like as if she's less than, even
Yes.
though we know she's clearly more than enough. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, being in different work settings or academia. So can you share with the audience about experiences you've had, academia, workplaces, where you have been sent the message that you were not enough?
Yes. So I actually taught at an institution. So after I left that space,
Mm-hmm.
that school, I went to another school.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing about me is I have a lot of ideas. I'm a creator. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
manifester. I'm
Mm-hmm.
someone that it just, if I see, I'm like, oh, we could do this. Oh, we could do that. So I've always been that person that can bring ideas to a space
Mm-hmm.
and add value in that way. And I was at an institution, and we're in our meetings and such. And I remember there was like a grant that the faculty, some selected faculty members were going to apply for.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, okay, I got an idea. Da, da, da. They're like, you can't apply for this grant. And I said, why not? They say, well, you don't have your PhD. You don't have your PhD, so you cannot be a co-PI on this grant. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, okay, And I'll tell you what, as I've been thinking about just all of this, you know, when I think of the support that I've had, definitely, my undergraduate experience was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But then just like even deciding to go get a PhD,
And mathematics. Let me just
part of
highlight
part
that.
of it, part
Whew.
of it, Monty, was because of things like that. Because
Hmm.
I was looking for security. I was
Hmm.
looking for job security. And I knew that if I had all the credentials, then if as they say, it shit hit the fan, at least I could always go back and teach or whatever.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't necessarily the thing that I was called to do.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like when they said that to me, I was like, oh, well, I guess I got to go get that because no one's going to think that I can do anything else
Hmm.
if I don't have that,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, that really started the journey of me moving into getting a PhD because,
Wow.
after I finished undergrad and went into grad school to do my master's,
Mm-hmm.
I was burnt out. Like I was ready to just take a break. It's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
work. It's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
mental work.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I took a hiatus. I taught for a few years, and then I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And then the same thing happened at that place. Once I got that message, like I remember being on that campus, walking around and saying, gosh, I really want to stay, but I'm not going to be able to go further. I'm not going to be able to make more money
Mm-hmm.
because they told me I don't have a PhD.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so
So
you did what most of us do. Then we degree up. We
I
get
degreed
all the
up.
degrees and credentials. Yes. So
I
you got
degreed
that.
up.
You got that PhD in math.
Well, let's be specific. It was
Okay.
mathematics education. That's
Mathematics.
a little
But
bit
girl,
different,
that's
but it's
amazing.
still, yes. I just want to make sure that I am fully representing who I am and what
Yes.
I've done. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So we degree up, but then I was honest with my husband recently, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, had I known if I had permission to do the work that I'm doing now,
Hmm.
I probably would have done that and not do
Mm.
all of these things. But I don't regret any of those experiences because it's
Mhm.
definitely helped me to be who I am. You know, all of
Mhm.
the skills that I have, all of the
Mhm.
ways that I can educate and communicate
Mhm.
has come from just the years of me being in the classroom.
Yeah.
But again, it was really sort of mobilized by, I'm not going to be able to do much if I don't have this.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
So the message that you have to get this to be accepted. And so
absolutely.
once you got the degree, once you got that PhD, how were you treated then? Were you well received? Were you made to feel like you were a part of the team or that you belonged there? What happened then?
Well, I left. I left that place. I left that institution, and I
Hmm.
went back to school full time
Okay.
so that I can fully invest in my education because
Hmm.
I, like many folks, I worked and I went to school in undergrad,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
my grades suffered. And so I
Hmm.
always said that if I ever had the opportunity to do this again,
Hmm.
I'm gonna like just drop everything and focus in
Hmm.
on it.
Hmm.
And I had that opportunity, to
Hmm.
do so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know how I'm viewed, but I know, no one's calling me back to do a lecture or whatever because I'm not
Hmm.
in mathematics anymore. I'm
Hmm.
doing something completely different.
Right.
Um, but I think it's very beautiful work. But
Yes.
they're not calling me back,
Yeah.
department or whatever, saying, "Hey,
Hmm.
we want you to give a presentation about this, that,
Hmm.
and the other, pivoting
Hmm.
or whatever it is."
Hmm.
A lot of times in the math space, it's very focused on math. You know, so
So question. So after you got your PhD, you went full time, and then after that, you got a job at an institution after
mhm.
that? Okay.
Yes, yep,
Mhm.
yep,
And
and
how
then,
were you received then, having a Black woman with a PhD? How were you received, or how did people treat you after that?
well, I'll say this. I actually had issues with one of my professors when I was in graduate school. So I had started my job, but I hadn't finished completely. So I was like ABD,
Got it.
and I had done
Everyone, that's all but dissertation. That
my,
means you finish
yes,
all the
ABD,
coursework. It's just the last little
yes,
hurdle. Right.
yes. So I had a very interesting situation happen in the grad, like that sort of last leg of the PhD. My advisor wasn't the best. She wasn't supportive of me. I'm not sure what was happening on her end.
Mhm.
I was smart though because I actually had 5 people on my committee. So when you're in graduate school and you're
Mm.
working on a dissertation, you have to formulate a committee of people
Mhm.
who will support you in getting the work done. And
Mhm.
typically, what we do is we select people who can help us with theoretical frameworks,
Mhm.
methodology, theory. They understand your work,
Mhm.
and you can rely on them to guide you with certain things when things come up.
Mhm.
So I was advised by her
Mhm.
to get a full committee, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to do that. So I had
Mhm.
5 people. The minimum
Wow.
you need is 3.
Yeah, I had 3.
I did
Mhm.
5 because I was
Wow.
like, let's go. It was recommended that we had 5.
Mm.
So we had I done the dissertation, the defense, and
Mhm.
they're like, oh, then there needs some work. I was like, okay.
Mhm.
Well, I found out later that my advisor didn't think that I was going to finish the work. Just and I didn't understand why they would think that I wouldn't finish the work.
Mhm.
Just I don't know exactly what was happening on that person's end,
Mhm.
but I felt like what's happening here? Why am I not getting the support that I need to finish
Right.
this?
Right.
I really kept it to myself. I was hurt
Mhm.
because I worked really really hard,
Mhm.
and it was a very stressful time being in that environment because you're
Mhm.
trying to finish.
Mhm.
I mean, there were other things happening in my personal life that just was very
Mhm.
stressful.
Mhm.
But than to have someone who's supposed to really have your back, really not
Yeah.
going for you. So I mean, I
Yeah.
did all the work. Again, didn't think I was going to do it, but I did it. And so the thing that I feel good about is that I
Mhm.
passed
Mhm.
from 4 out of the 5 people, because when it came down to the final hoorah, I don't even think she read all of my stuff.
What? And that's your advisor. Wait, so let's add an extra layer to this, right? So can you share with the audience what is more complicated about the situation with the advisor as well? Who, what, not her name, but tell
Right.
us a little bit about the dynamic that was like, whoa.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
and like when things like that are happening to you in those environments, because there's not as many Black scholars in R1s, and R1s just means research one institutions.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like, okay, let me just suck it up, let me just finish, let me just do what I got to do and keep it
Mm-hmm.
moving. But it was another
Mm-hmm.
Black woman
Yeah.
treating me like that. And then
Yeah.
the thing that was interesting is, after I had finished, had moved on, I'm in my life, I'm in my work setting now. There were students who had started maybe a little bit later than I in terms of
Mm-hmm.
that process, and
Mm-hmm.
called me. They're like, "Did you experience this with such and such and such?" And I'm like, "I did." They're like,
Mm-hmm.
"I thought I was crazy." And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
happened to me too. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't one, it was a few people but we just never said anything
Mm-hmm.
because of but you don't want to feel like you're betraying someone. They're treating you
Right.
bad,
And
but
you don't wanna feel like, "Is it me?" Like, it couldn't be her doing this because it must be me. So then we start taking the blame, and I think that happens with a lot of us when we're in academia, jobs, things like that, and we start questioning, "This can't be right. This can't be right," or "Why would they treat me like this? So there must be something wrong with me." But I'm so glad they reached out to you and said, "Hey, it just happened this happened to you," right? Because we
yeah,
need to be able to validate and reality test with other people. So I'm glad that you were open and told them, no, this happened to me too.
absolutely. And we
Mm-hmm.
just didn't know what to do and how to move forward with it. So I think
Mm-hmm.
many of us, when we are, treated negatively by one of our own, we almost just bite the bullet. We're like, all right, well, I'm just gonna move on, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to deal with it, because you don't want to put them in a situation where they're going to lose their job, or they're going
Right.
to be looked upon negatively. So, and actually, there's research on that, where we protect.
I
we're,
just wrote
we're
that down. I just wrote that down. Protect.
yeah,
Yes.
we're protecting,
Mm-hmm.
the folks who are being, negative towards us, even though
Mm-hmm.
they're part of our communities,
Right. Right. Can you speak a little bit more about the protection and why some of us who may be treated negatively by another Black person, particularly another Black woman, can you speak a little bit more about the protection element?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I just think that when we look at spaces, whether it's academic settings or in the workplace, when you see, a Black male or a Black female, and they've risen the ranks
Mm-hmm.
beyond you,
Mm-hmm.
you know that they're smart, you know that they're accomplished,
Mhm,
that's not even the issue. It's
mhm,
just maybe how they've carried out their work. They might
mhm,
have been there too long, they might be tired. We don't know, right?
mm,
um, and what happens is you might be treated a certain way, but you don't want them to lose what they've worked hard for, because it's
mhm,
not to say that they haven't worked hard for this position that they're in,
mhm, mhm.
but along the way something may be happening to them personally. So again, you're doing all of this rationalizing, right?
Right, giving them a pass,
You're
trying
giving
to be
them a pass.
compassionate.
You're like, oh well, maybe this, maybe that. Da, da, da.
Mhm,
I know they're smart. I know
mm,
that they didn't just get like I knew
mhm,
all of those things. So
mhm.
I didn't want, by me complaining, or by us, coming together to complain, that it, put any kind of backlash on that person to lose
Right,
what they worked for. So
right.
in our mind, we're like, you know what, that happened. I'm moving on. I'm not
Mhm.
staying here anyway. I'm moving on to the
Mhm.
next thing. I got
Mhm.
mine. Let me go.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then you just squash it. But then you start hearing the stories of the people who come beyond you who
Yeah.
had some kind of weird, shady something.
Right.
You're like, dang, should I have said something? Or, like,
Mm.
so you kind of go through that too.
Right, right. So you start going back and reflecting. But the thing about it too is, I think there's a cost involved when we do that, because you were saying that you really didn't feel supported by her. But when we give people a pass, later we think about what are the things, or how could have things have been differently if you were supported, right? So if you would have been positioned in a better way for your career, how might things have been different? So, yeah.
So I think like I've gone through and I've replayed that, and what I think I would have done is I would have selected someone else.
Ah.
And I just really wanted to work with that person at the time.
Mhm,
But when I
mhm.
reflect back, I'm like, I probably should have worked with someone else.
Ah,
And I think
okay.
the outcome might have been different. But
Mhm.
honestly, Kimani, like nothing is in vain. It just
Yeah,
isn't. Because
yeah.
literally all of the things that I experienced in higher ed,
Mhm,
the good and the bad, the goods
mhm,
were I know how to do curriculum. The
mhm,
goods are I know how to communicate with people. The
mhm,
good is I know how to, organize. I know how to create programs, because you work in silos too when you work
mhm,
in higher ed, when you work in those
mhm,
environments. It's not like a
mhm,
bunch of people you're reporting to. They're just like, do this, and then you got this is the deadline. So
mhm,
I can do things, and it's
mhm,
because of being in that environment. So those are
mhm,
the positives.
mhm,
Unfortunately, the negatives is stress,
mhm.
deadlines. There's this sort of underlying stress that people don't realize that you have when you're in academia. Many people would say, "Oh, you have your summers." Da, da, da. But remember what I was telling you. Depending on where you are, not everybody's getting paid for 12
Right.
months out the year. They're just not.
Mhm,
So you're
mhm,
trying to pull together, scrap together an income for the summer.
mhm, mhm,
And so when you're supposed to be resting, you're scrapping together a salary for the summer so that you could pay your mortgage or whatever,
mhm,
which I've
mhm,
done.
mhm,
One of those institutions, that was the only institution that I was at when I taught high school. They basically took your 9 month salary and you could spread it over. You had a choice. You could spread it over
mhm,
a year, or you could
mhm,
take it for like 9 months. When
mhm.
any other institution that I've worked at, you did
And
not get paid.
you gotta make it work, right?
So some people do a grant, they'll do this, they'll do a professional development thing,
Mhm,
like just something that's going to bring in about the same amount that they would be getting if
mhm.
they were working.
Right, right. Can
And
I add
so
something else though? Because I just want to say something that you also showed that you were able to get your PhD with having an advisor who wasn't supportive. So, on top of meeting the deadlines, on top of all these other things, that you still persevered
yeah,
despite that, right?
I'm
And
grateful.
yeah, that's amazing. And then I think you also mentioned there were a number of things that you found out about later, and we talked about that sense of betrayal. Can you speak a little bit about that in relation to the advisor? Not only was she not supportive, but there were some other things she was doing that
I don't
really.
remember. Well, yes. I mean, just really not reading the work. Like, what we hope you to do when you have a advisor is for them to give you critical feedback.
Mhm.
And they don't understand your work. I mean, I've had conversations with so many of my friends who are ABD. They're having to start all over, having to move to
Oh,
another institution,
oh,
because
disaster.
like it's not in alignment with the professor. And
Mm,
some people are able, they can buy time and do that. They can go to
mhm,
another institution and start over. But there
mm,
are others of us who we don't have the financial resources to
right.
just leave and start over.
And
Like,
all
let
that
me tell you,
time.
it's a lot of time. It's just a
Yeah,
lot of
a
time.
lot
And
of work, a
so
lot of time.
yeah, was not reading folks' work.
Yeah,
And that the one of the people who came to me, that was like, yeah, I don't know what to do. So she was just basically talking to her other advisors and making sure that they had her helped her to get her stuff tight.
Mm,
And I'm
mm.
like, this is crazy.
It
But
is crazy.
you
It is
know,
crazy.
yeah, moving
So, was
on.
there something that happened? And forgive me if I'm not remembering correctly. Was there something that happened on your oral defense as well in relation to her that you found out about later?
Well, I think I was telling you, just you leave the room and then
Mm-hmm.
there's a conversation about, well, did she pass or what needs to be done? In my case, I had corrections. And,
Mm-hmm.
I had allies in that room and later
Mm-hmm.
found out like, she didn't think you were gonna do this. She didn't think that you were gonna do the work. And I was like, what?
This is your
And
advisor. This is the one who's happening for
I
you.
was like, so I'm grateful that I had those folks in the room
Mm-hmm.
sharing that with me because that really put the light under my butt to make
Mm,
sure that I finished. I
mm,
also want to say that because I was ABD, I was stressed
mm,
because the institution that I was teaching at, it was a new institution forming and all of that. So they had to get accreditation. So me having my credentials was key.
mm, mm,
So, the higher ups were asking me, when you gonna be finished? When you gonna be finished? So the pressure, think about that
mm.
pressure,
Yeah.
they want to be able to say everybody in the math department has their PhD,
Mhm, mhm,
from accreditation standpoint.
mhm.
So I'm like, oh my God, I gotta finish, I gotta write. It was so much
Yeah,
for me. It was so much
yeah.
for me. And then I had a new
Mhm,
baby. I was like,
mm.
how am I gonna do all of this? So,
Wow,
oh my gosh. Oh my God.
wow. But you made a way, you made a way, right?
It was all a blessing. They were all
Yes,
blessings to get me to where I am right now, to that point,
yes,
for sure.
yes, and we're gonna talk about the pivot. So I'm curious about when you found out you talked about the stress that you experienced, right? What
Yes.
about when you found out from the allies in the room that your advisor was saying negative things about you, that you probably wouldn't fit, like all that kind of stuff, right? How did that impact you knowing that this was your advisor, another Black woman? How did that impact you?
Yeah, I mean, it was hurtful, I I think one of the things that I do know for sure is that when you're in graduate school, your advisor helps to set you up,
Mhm.
things get
Mhm.
set up for the next phase.
Mhm.
I've seen other colleagues that they have advisors that are working on publications, and so they're doing that kind of work. Now I
Mhm.
decided to be a teacher, like go to a
Mhm.
teaching institution
Mhm.
versus a research institution, and that makes a
Mhm.
difference.
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
in many cases, some of our advisors want us to do some of the things that they've done. And when
Mhm.
we choose a slightly different path, sometimes that's a misalignment for them. So they're like, I can't help you, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But it was very hurtful. I think too, the thing that was also hurtful, they didn't show up to the graduation. My family was there, obviously, but yeah, they weren't there. And so,
Your whole committee?
well, not the whole committee, but the advisor, the
Wow. Your advisor did not come to your
advisor,
graduation.
no, the advisor was
Wow. So your advisor didn't hood you or anything.
no, uh-uh,
That is terrible.
no,
That is terrible, right? So did she say she was coming?
no.
Wow. Oh my God, how insulting.
Yeah.
But
So
you have
I
to
mean,
work with
it
a
is
woman
what it
for years.
is. It is what it
Wow.
is.
Yeah. And the reason that I want to talk about this, Natasha, is that, as Spelman alum, I know both of us believe in sisterhood, right? And it's very interesting that when I have conversations or when I have had conversations about Black women in toxic jobs, the issue keeps coming up, or people in my audience keep asking about or saying, this is another Black woman who did this to me. This is another Black woman. It was so hurtful. So it's interesting that as we have these experiences, this issue keeps coming up, right? So
Yeah.
you mentioned that it was hurtful. However, you were like, okay, this is someone I cannot rely on. So can you share with the audience after you got your PhD, after you started working, what was that moment, or what was the progression of moments that you recognized, I want to pivot out of this situation and move to something else? So what was going on that made you decide that you wanted to pivot?
Oh boy. So, I actually really enjoyed where I taught. I did. I really liked it for a long time. And I think things just started changing because the leadership changed there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and then also, I feel like just the stress of having to perform, having to prepare for classes that you may not be fully understanding the content. I'm going to
Mhm.
be honest about that. I think particularly in the area of like mathematics and the sciences, you might have done those things in graduate school, but that doesn't mean that you have a really strong understanding of the content.
Hmm.
And so, but you have a PhD, so you can learn. Like that's the
Mhm.
other thing I would say is a positive. I can read, study, and teach myself things and learn. But there's a
Mhm.
stress in being able to stand up on, in front of a group of students, and this might be the very first time that you're teaching content that you're familiar with, but you're not that you've ever taught before.
Right.
That's stressful. And
Absolutely.
I don't care who it's stressful.
Yes.
It's stressful.
Yes.
It's a lot.
Mhm.
Commuting from where I live to the institution, that was a stress. And then because I was there for a long period of time, after a while, my salary wasn't competitive. So I negotiated very well,
Mhm.
but then after a while, your salary is not competitive. And
Hmm.
depending on the institution that you're at, if you're at a
Mhm.
private institution versus a state institution,
Mhm.
you're not going to get a raise the way you might want to get that raise, right?
Hmm.
You
Mhm.
might be furloughed, like it's just there are different things that influence you getting a raise. All right.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then, the workload increases. You might be responsible for doing this because of various policies that they put in place.
Mhm.
And you're like, but I'm not making much more money. Matter of fact, like the year that I left, I
Mhm.
retired, the state of Georgia, the governor mandated an increase for all employees, like teachers, state employees,
Wow. That's
$5,000.
unusual. Oh, $5,000. Okay.
But that's nothing.
Mhm.
Just to
Mhm.
catch up with inflation, that's
Hmm.
you know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So after
Mhm.
being at my institution for more than a decade, I didn't even make $100,000. I didn't even make $80,000 there. I
Ooh.
didn't even make $75,000 there
As a PhD.
as a PhD.
Wow.
Yes,
Mm.
yes,
Mm.
yes.
Mm. Yeah.
Now, the folks who are going to make that money, they're going to be working really hard. They're going to be
Mhm.
on the different committees. They're going to be doing all the things. But like to me, it's like there has to be a separation, between your work and your life. There has to be some kind.
Absolutely. Yes.
And when I started really looking at the environment, the academic environment, in terms of like the meetings, the quabbling, the food that they had there for faculty, I was like, there's another way that I can use my time wiser.
Okay. Okay.
That really was being there and being in all
Mhm.
of these past settings that we've talked about
Mhm.
really ignited my passion to do the work of really helping people who are professionals, like in academia, to help them to be better in terms of their wellness.
Ah.
Because I know, like from my own self, like my
Mhm.
blood pressure was high when I was in graduate school. I had never had blood pressure issues, but then slowly
Mm.
when I would go to get like an annual physical at the doctor,
Mhm.
they're like, "Huh, like what's going on?" Like I was like, "What do you mean?" I like
It's
it
stress.
was slowly rising. It was
Mhm.
slowly rising, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like you got to read all these books. Like it's I'm telling you, anyone who's deciding to go back to get their PhD or just be in those environments, just beware.
Mhm.
Get a health screening,
Mhm.
before you go because you might be setting yourself up for more than you might have anticipated when
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
trying to degree up.
Yeah.
Like that's real talk.
Right.
And
Right.
so for me, my blood pressure kept going up
Mm.
at the institution that I was at, you know?
Mm.
And I'm like, you know, like you talked about before, you know, just rationalizing, oh, it's not that bad. Oh,
Mm.
and then you're burying all the feelings that you might be having. I'm like,
Mhm.
and I remember my doctor was like, you know, you have to do something. You
Mm.
have to do something.
Mhm.
Let's plan an exit strategy.
That's
Let's
what your doctor said.
yes.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. Let's plan an
Okay.
exit strategy.
Because of
And
the
so
stress, your blood pressure. Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm.
And then you're not making the money, you know. So it's like it's a
Right.
balance, right? Do I work significantly more for $4,000 or $5,000? That's no real money.
Right.
Do I
And your
leave
health is at stake too.
and then your health is at stake? Do I go and work? Like it was there's so many variables that you have to think about, you know. And
Mhm.
so I decided to really lean into this work of wellness because it's something I'm very passionate about.
Mhm.
And I know that I can make a difference. And I said to myself, I said, you know what? If they pay me 70 something $1,000, they giving me that. Let me see what I could create on my own.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk about the journey of deciding or having the confidence that you can go on your own, because I
Yeah.
think many Black women, are in jobs that are just not fulfilling to them. They're experiencing disrespect. They're experiencing all these different things. But there's a perception that they cannot leave, that they cannot pivot. They might know that they have talents and gifts. They might know that there's other things they want to do, but they feel stuck by the fear. Okay. Can you speak about, did you experience that fear about leaving?
Girl, yes. All right. So let me
Okay.
tell you. Let me tell y'all what I did. All right.
Okay.
So one of the things that I like to do in the summers after school was over is I would also, you know, teach a class. But then I also try to do some kind of professional development experience for myself, right?
Okay.
So because this blood pressure thing was an issue for me, I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I need to. A friend had shared with me, there's a place that you should probably check out. You know, they teach you about food, they teach you about emotional wellness and the connection to food and all of those things.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was like a 2 week program. And
Mhm.
so I decided I had some downtime. I was able to go and do that. Right.
Okay.
And Dr. Kimani, it was so transformative. I was like, oh
No.
my gosh, I could do this. This right here, teaching people about how to eat well. And I was like, and cooking? What? This, this is it. This is what I could do. This is it.
Mhm.
So I literally, it just created like, it put a fire under me. So I
I
was
was
like,
about to say that because I just noticed as you talked earlier, just as a psychologist, I observe a lot, right? As you were talking about the mathematics, like you kind of talked about it, but then when you started talking about the pivot and you going find out about you just lit up. It's like a whole different person, right?
so I created like a Facebook page where I would just talk to people. Like I would just create the food, like make food, plant-based
Hmm.
food. And I would just show people what I was making. Right. So that's where I started. I just created a Facebook page
Hmm.
and I would just cook things and share with people what I was
Hmm.
making. So I
Yeah.
did that for many years, right?
Yeah.
And I think part of going back to what you said earlier about getting degreed up, because I didn't have a food background, I didn't think that I was qualified in that area. I
Interesting.
didn't think I was
Interesting.
qualified in that area, which is interesting.
Hmm.
All right.
Hmm.
So what started happening was people at my institution would pull me aside. They're like, oh, I saw that post. I saw that food that you made. So I'm talking about wellness. I'm talking about all the things, right? And
Hmm.
they're like, oh, could you recommend some yoga stuff? Could you recommend this? Could you recommend that? I was like, yeah, I can, no problem. Because I felt like I was doing something bad, honestly,
Really? Why?
because I felt like I was moonlighting, right? I'm like, I'm
Hmm.
doing this other thing. So I
Hmm.
kind of, I didn't really share. I just
Hmm.
if you followed me on Facebook or
Hmm.
wherever, you saw what I was doing. But I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't at the institution, oh, do this. No, I didn't do any of that because I was like, this is something I really love, but I'm not going to tell people,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I then decided, again, trying to get degreed up because that's what we do as
Mm-hmm.
Black
Mm-hmm.
women. I really wanted to learn about like how to support people on a health journey. So I actually went
Hmm.
to health coaching school,
Okay.
and I didn't think I had enough information with the first program, so I went and did another program,
Wow.
right? So with that, things started really taking off. I moved from
Mm-hmm.
a certain part of the city to another part of the city, and
Mm-hmm.
a friend of mine was like, they're looking for chefs to do demos at the farmers market. I said, oh, I don't have a chef degree. I don't. They're like, girl, please, you just go apply for that thing. So I literally started doing that, started doing demos at farmers markets through an organization, for years. I used to do that. I did demos at senior citizen centers. I did it at schools, and then like I really lean into, again, the educational part of what I do, creating the
Mm-hmm.
curriculum around health and wellness, food, how to do things. That's what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember, because again, I told you about that summer work. I said, all right,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to teach in the summer.
Hmm.
If I can make, so I gave myself little benchmarks. I was like, if I
Okay.
can make this amount of money in the summer,
Mm-hmm.
that's similar to what I would have made if I taught,
Hmm.
then that's like, okay, there's something
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Then that happened,
So you
right?
were collecting data, right?
I'm
You're
collecting
like,
data,
okay, so how do I replace my income? If this is
right?
going to be enough compared to this, okay, this is a positive direction.
This is
Okay.
okay, okay. I
Mm-hmm.
can,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
I'm
okay.
moving. I'm moving.
I'm moving. Then I said, okay, if I could replace, because actually during COVID, we were home.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big pivot for me,
Mm-hmm.
a big aha moment for me. So,
Mm-hmm.
we're home. I was teaching online.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, if I could do what I'm doing and replace my income doing what I do,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to do that.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
gonna do that. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. Slowly but surely, I was able to replace my income and do all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me the confidence, like, okay, you have a business here. You have,
Yeah.
you just need to do the thing.
Yes. Okay, I
You-
want to I want to just go back up to a few things.
yeah.
So one, I really appreciate you talked about the process of you replacing your income because a lot of Black women ask me or they say, I want to leave this job, but I got bills to pay, I got a mortgage, I got this, I got that. How am I
Yep.
going to leave a job? And
Yep.
so what I say to Black women is I never, ever, unless the Black woman is in immediate danger, physically or psychologically, I never say to somebody, just up and leave your job and
Yeah.
things gonna
I
be
would
okay. No,
either.
I never say that, right? I say, okay, if you are not, whatever the job is not fulfilling you, it's harming, whatever that might be, start developing your exit plan. Let's plan for it, right? So that's something we talked about in the Job Liberation Virtual Summit. Shameless plug. It was last weekend. It was phenomenal. Over 300 Black women were ushered to freedom through the Job Liberation Virtual Summit. You can get the replay, and I'll put that information description section on the screen. But something I want Black women to hear you say, and what I always say too, let's come up with a plan.
Yeah.
Let's come up with a plan about how you will replace your income. Not that you're just going to up and leave your job tomorrow or next week. It might take a while, but at least you're making progress with coming up with that plan. And like you just said, it was like, okay, first I started this summer. Then, okay, we were during the pandemic and then we were at home. Then I started thinking, wait a minute, can I fully replace my income? And then you were able to pivot. So, but I do want to go back to something because when I first asked you, say, girl, yeah, tell us about the fear and tell us how you walk through the fear. Because that's another thing that keeps Black women stuck at a job. Is number one, the concern about the finances. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to replace my income? Number two, Well, go along with that. It's the fear, right? The fear that I won't be able to replace my income. I won't be able to get another job. I'm going to end up homeless. So those fears. So can you share with the audience, how did you walk through those fears?
All right, so let me tell you about this. This is how I know that my ancestors were right there with me, y'all. So, and I'm going that this is tied into what you said. So this is long, but it's
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yes.
When I started at the institution that I retired from, a friend
Mm-hmm.
called me, and this is when Obama got elected. He
Mm-hmm.
was like, "What you doing?" I said, "I don't know what I'm doing." He's like, "Go get your cell phone. Go get your computer. Pull this up." So he had me pull up the student loan forgiveness program, PSLF.
Yes.
No one had known about it at that time. It was
Oh,
new because it
wow.
was something that Obama was working on, and as soon as he got in office, boom, he put it in action. All right. So he was like, go to your HR people and apply for this. Okay. So part of my fear, and I'm going to toggle back, part of the fear
Mm-hmm.
was student loan debt
Yep. Yep. Yep.
looming over me,
Yes.
almost a hundred
Mm-hmm.
thousand dollars of student loan debt that
Mm-hmm.
was looming over me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that now we back in 2009, he's telling me, make sure you go to HR. I went to HR, I applied for the thing. They had never heard of it, right? They didn't know because it was new.
Hmm.
I just had to prove that I was employed with a public institution.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that this was all part of the big master plan. So with PSLF, the Public Student Loan Forgiveness Program,
Mm-hmm.
you want to get your student loans forgiven, whether you are a teacher, educator, a doctor, there has to be
Mm-hmm.
some public service that you are doing for
Mm-hmm.
10 years or
Mm-hmm.
120 payments, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's a process of getting that approved first.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get it approved, then now they got to look at your income, and then they got to see what the income is. And then you have to pay back
Mm-hmm.
based on what your income is for that year. So if your income is 150,000, then they're looking at that, and then they decide what those 12 months worth of payments are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was like, okay, I want these loans to be paid off. So I have to make a decision. Do I make a lot of money because they're going to take a lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
or do I play a little bit so that I can keep my payments low? I have to think
Mm-hmm.
about all that because if my payments are super high and I go somewhere else, I'm making six figures or whatever, the payments were crazy. It was
Right.
almost $1,000. It was a lot.
Right. Right.
So anyway, we work in this thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? I did that. They didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
They said, all right, we're just gonna submit it. Good luck. I remember the lady saying that. And then I had gotten approved for it.
Wow. Yes.
But again, you have to then begin the process by paying every month for up
Mm-hmm.
to 120 payments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The blessing was COVID. The blessing was COVID because I had been paying.
Mm-hmm.
But when COVID hit and people couldn't go into schools,
Mm-hmm.
they made payments. Like if you paid, they called it a $0 payment would qualify.
Oh, wow.
So there were $0 payments that were qualified that I didn't have to pay. They kind of basically deferred people's student loans. And in
Hmm.
them deferring their student loan payments, they kind of gave them, you know, those zero payments that would
Mm-hmm.
add up to our 120 payments.
Mm-hmm.
That's what wind up happening. So terms of my fear, I didn't want to have student loan debt if I was
Mm-hmm.
on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And my last thing was like, if I could pay off my student loans,
Mm-hmm.
then it's time for me to go.
Ah, okay.
If my
So
loans
replace
are
my income and then
forgiven,
my student loans paid.
then
I'm out.
then I'm out. So I remember I think it was like 3 years worth of zero payments that I was gifted, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then they had looked at my track record. They had looked at
Mm-hmm.
all of these payments that I had paid in
Mm-hmm.
full.
Mm-hmm.
So I was diligent. I would call these student loan people all the time. And I remember talking to the lady. I said, "Well, how many more payments do I need before I'm liberated?" Using your word, liberated from this thing.
Talking about so I can buy myself out of the situation.
Tell
Yes.
myself about this thing, girl. She was like, "Oh, wait a minute. What?" I'm like, "What? What did you? What?" She said, "Ooh." She said, "All right, this is what you need to do. Print out this form. I'm gonna send you a link. Print out this form." She said, "Boo, you only got like 3 more payments."
What?
I said, "What?" She said, "What they did was they counted all of those zero payments, but then Biden counted back payments." So I was like, I'm getting chills thinking about it.
Girl.
I went and I did everything she told me to do. And within like 3 or 4 months, when I went into my portal, I got a notice that said, "Congratulations, you don't have to pay anything else. Your
Yeah.
student loans are done." Boom, boom. And that next year, I was like, "Okay, I can't back out now."
Yeah. I'm out, right?
I got
God has
like the
shown
next
everything has
year.
been
I'm
shown
like,
to me.
I gotta go because
Yes.
I met all those benchmarks. I was able to
Mm-hmm.
replace my income in the
Mm-hmm.
summer. Then I was
Mm-hmm.
able to make more money than my actual salary in what I was doing, and then my student loans got forgiven.
Boom, boom. So
Boom.
that helped you walk through the fear because
Yes,
you had already started doing things financially. So where the fear was,
prepared.
you're like, okay, I'm good because I got the data showing that I'm good. And I just want to give a shameless plug too, because I got all my student loans forgiven too through the public service loan forgiveness program. I'm like, what? I could
Listen,
not believe it. I still got that printout by my desk. I look at it periodically, like, are you kidding me? Girl,
girl.
that was
Yes.
so liberating. And people ask me all the time, like, do I have any regrets about working the toxic job? I don't, right?
I
Because
don't
there
either.
are so many things I learned, so many connections I made, but I got those student loans forgiven, right? So that really helped in
Yes.
terms of generational wealth. So thank you for that. Okay. So you talked about that you pivoted, right? So what would you say? Oh, let me ask you this. This is a new question I just thought about. Were there people around you who were not supportive of the pivot? Who maybe were like, girl, why are you leaving your job? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why did you experience that?
So I'll say this. This is the other thing that I think is important that
Mhm,
a lot of us don't do. Ladies, when you are new in an environment or
mhm,
you are welcoming in someone new into a job situation, share with them all the things that they need to know about the
mhm,
money
hmm,
and the compensation and the benefits and all of that. That's
mhm.
really important because it
Yeah.
really down the line makes decision making you're not sure how to move because of some of the earlier decisions that you made. So
Mhm,
here's where that comes in. Because I work for the state of Georgia, there are
mhm,
2 ways that you can do your retirement. You can
hmm,
use what they call a TRS, which is like the kind of state pension plan,
hmm,
or you can basically do like TIAA-CREF. So they'll tell you if you're gonna be somewhere. Mind you, someone said it like this later when I was like early in the game, like when I first got hired.
mhm,
And before I could actually select, I went to HR and told they're like, "We can't tell you what to do." I said, "I don't want y'all to do that,
mhm,
but like I'm not sure how to select my benefits package."
mhm, mhm.
So later on, the woman said to me, she's like, "If you came and you spoke to me, I would have told you. Stay there for 10 years. If you stay for 10 years, then you'll have a guaranteed pension.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
if you don't stay there for 10 years, if you decide to leave, you'll lose your pension. So you might want to do TIAA craft." That's what she said.
hmm,
I
hmm,
wasn't sure what I was gonna do, if I was gonna stay in Georgia. I wasn't sure. So I said, "Man,
mhm.
let me just do the TIA craft because I don't want nobody holding my money. I want to be able to do
Right.
what I'm gonna do. You
Give me
know,
all my coins, right?
all my coins,
Mhm,
And so I decided to do that. Now, I think because there were other people at my institution that chose differently,
mm.
then that makes you married to the institution, the place, because you think about your pension, you think
Yeah,
about years of service, you think
yeah,
about all of that. And if
yeah.
I just hang on a little while longer, I'm gonna
Mm,
get this.
mhm.
Meanwhile, it's like that time's really not guaranteed to you.
True,
Right.
true,
You know?
true. True.
So I think that's how they were talking about it. Like, I think people were very supportive of me, but then
Mhm.
in regards to, they were kind of looking at what I was doing through their lens. And
Hmm.
because they had pensions, I didn't have a pension.
Hmm.
That influenced them staying and sticking it out and,
Hmm.
okay, and dealing with bad treatment.
Mm.
Versus me, I was really like a free agent. I could leave and I got my money that I could go with.
Yes. Smart.
So I
Smart.
think people need to think about that too when
Mhm.
they're, in these spaces.
Yeah.
You gotta find somebody who's going to share with you all the deets about the compensation and the packages, the benefits package. A lot
Mhm.
of times we don't want to share. Oh, I don't talk about money. They need to be talking about money because somebody might not be getting compensated and they're like incredible because they
Yeah.
didn't negotiate right. So it's like you just don't know.
Yeah.
And we need to know. We need to
Yeah.
know how much we're making.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also important for us to recognize as Black women when we are working for systems, like I worked for the school system. And so I will get a pension, right? Because I was there for a number of years. But the thing I think is keeping a lot of us stuck in jobs where we might qualify for a pension is that we believe that we have to just stay there to get the pension. No, you don't. Check your job, check out the policies, check out with the retirement office, and just see you may still qualify for your retirement even if you've left the job. Okay. So the importance of doing your research, don't just assume, oh my God, just like you said, if I leave, I'm going to lose all my retirement. That's the one thing. The second thing is you have to think about your own health as well. We've been talking about wellness. You have to think about your own health. So if you are a Black woman and you are literally hanging on by a thread, your blood pressure going up, you have all these
Yes.
physical, psychological symptoms, you have to think about for yourself, is are you going to be able to make it to retirement? So thinking about and knowing that your health comes before anything else, right? So Dr. Natasha, if there's a Black woman watching this right now and she's hearing what you're saying and she's like, yeah, me too, me too, but she's saying, but I can't leave. I can't leave. Your situation is different than me. I can't leave. I can't leave this job. I can't do it. What words of wisdom can you offer to her?
Well, first I would say to her, really think about the pros and cons. What are you giving up by staying?
Hmm.
I often think that some of the most brilliant people, some of the most amazing entrepreneurs are right
Mhm.
there in the academy. They're right
Mhm.
there in corporate America. And we're really just giving our IP away.
Mhm.
When I say IP, I'm talking about our intellectual property because when you
Mhm.
work at an institution, an
Mhm.
academic institution, you're
Mhm.
creating all of these different things. It does not, you don't own it.
No.
Don't own it. So you got to list the pros and cons of what
Mhm.
you're giving up by staying there. And,
Mhm.
and is it truly worth you either losing your health and wellness,
Mm.
losing some great ideas that you could monetize on your own?
Mhm.
Like what are you gaining from being there? Now some people are climbing. They're trying to climb. They want to be a president of an institution, all the things.
Mhm.
But, I think that we have to look fully at, what our bodies are telling us,
Mhm.
and what we can create on our own,
True.
because you learn so much in those environments. You
Mhm.
can literally create those things on your own. So
Yes.
ultimately you have to decide, you got to weigh it, but
Mhm.
don't lose yourself in the process.
Yeah.
I don't think that I would never tell anyone to just jump out there.
Mhm.
It's scary being an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
but it's
Mhm.
beautiful. I own
Mhm.
my time. I'm not stressing
Mhm.
about, oh my God, what are these people going to say about. I'm not thinking about any of those things. I'm just
Mhm.
serving fully and authentically in the work that I'm doing now. And I'm just so grateful. Are you able to do that in the space that you're in? If you are, wonderful. And if you're deciding to move on and do something else,
Mhm.
come up with an exit plan. I did. I had a 12-month exit plan. So I was paying stuff off.
Mm-hmm.
Those bills were still there,
Yeah.
those student loan, all that stuff was there. So we had
Mm-hmm.
a 12-month plan to
Mm-hmm.
get things knocked out so that
Yeah.
as I left, I didn't have a bunch of stuff just looming. My credit score
Mm-hmm.
went up because I knocked out a bunch of debt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it felt so good. Like I was like, wow, we did that. I mean, just cleared, boop, 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 boop. So come up with your exit strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid. You can always reach out to me. You can reach
Mm-hmm.
out to Dr. Kamani for some advice on some things,
Mm-hmm.
particularly those people who are in academic settings. And if there's a way that you can now, like you can start demonstrating, okay, to build confidence that this other thing that you might want to do is something that's viable,
Mm-hmm.
start doing it. Start doing
Mm-hmm.
it in small ways so that you can build confidence because I think, again, for me, I'm this math person.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I could cook. I knew that this was my passion, but I think again, I didn't think that I was qualified,
Mm-hmm.
to talk about food and share with people what I know about food, even though I've been cooking my entire life.
Right.
I just gained confidence in that particular area, and
Mhm.
boom, it
Yeah.
just took off from there.
Yeah. I love what you said that, the importance of starting small to start replacing your income, creating that exit plan is so important. And when we talked about an exit plan, you talked about a whole year. I took basically a year too. So I took a leave of absence. I had an exit plan. I worked with a Black woman financial psychologist to get the money right, pay off my debts, all those other things. And that's something we talked about in the virtual summit. So again, if you haven't gone to the virtual summit, which was last weekend, you can get the replay, which is on the screen. And I'm going to put Dr. Natasha's information on the screen as well, in the description section. But I wanted us to also talk a little bit because both of us are Hello 7 certified coaches. And we went
Yes.
through in fact, that's how I met you, which is
Yes.
very interesting because we both went to Spelman. We were there at the same time, but never met each other, but met each other at ROI in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And we're both certified Hello 7 coaches. Can you please share with the audience what is a Hello 7 certified coach and what are the services that you offer and how can you be contacted?
Oh, absolutely. By the way, we do have some amazing questions in the chat if you're going to
Yeah,
address
I'll get to that when we wrap up. Yes.
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 So for a Hello 7 business coach is a coach that will help you just like figure out step by step what you need to do to move from, their different levels in entrepreneurship. So from making $5,000 a month to $15,000 a month to $30,000 a month. There are different systems and things that you need to put in place in order to reach those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, really, I feel like we got the blueprint. We now know how to support people who are really working to grow their businesses and what it takes to grow those businesses at various revenue levels.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think everyone who did that program, we all have a different focus.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is health and wellness.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I do, I have a suite of services in wellness. We have a meal prep program called Essential Meals to Go. So we really work with professionals, entrepreneurs, and we really help them to get right in terms of their eating and their wellness, right? So we have our meal prep program. So if someone needs meal prep, you're local, you're in Atlanta, you're out of Atlanta, you're nationwide, wherever you are, as long as you're not in Canada and you're not outside of the United States, we can get those meals to you, right? So we have that component. We also do cooking classes. And we really want to help people to really connect back to the kitchen and what that looks like for their wellness, because that's really where the healing is. It's you taking the time to cook your food and learn what you need specifically for whatever health issue or condition you might be dealing with. And
Mm-hmm.
then for the coaching side, there are quite a few folks who are entrepreneurs. Again, they left a toxic job, but now they're working 50, 60 hours a week as an entrepreneur, and they're
Mm-hmm.
not creating the balance that they need.
Mm-hmm.
So they need a health coach. So I pretty much bridge the business coaching and the health coaching. So I help busy professionals, entrepreneurs who want to really figure out the blend, the alignment that they need to have so that they can, I like to say, up level their wellness and their business. So I provide business and health coaching for those individuals. We have a site called healingmefirst.com. Healingmefirst.com is where you can see my wellness work, the coaching, all of that. But then if you need meals and things of that nature, you can always go to Essential Meals to Go. All right. And yeah, I'm just happy to support folks who are really trying to figure this thing out because, y'all, we are bombarded with stress. No matter what you do, you're bombarded with stress. And so you have to find a healthy balance for all of it. And so that's one of the things that I help people to do. And actually, Dr. Kimani, it's
Mm-hmm.
actually to go with the number two. So if
Oh,
you can
okay. Let me
type
change
that,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
essential meals, the number two go.
Okay. Essential meals to go. Okay. And you schooled me on something too that I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Because I said, oh, so you do meal prep vegan. And you said no. Can you break it down? Can you break down how you
Yeah, I
schooled
told
me?
Kimani, I said, girl, I ain't vegan. I'm plant-based. She was like, what? What's the difference? I said, well, I feel like being vegan is very limiting because, people are, eating is a culturally relevant experience, depending on where you are in the world. And so culturally, some people, they're just not vegan. Like just their culture prevents them from being vegan. When we say veganism, we're talking about no use of any kind of animal in the final product of a food. So, for example, no bee, no bees at all. So people who are vegan, they don't eat honey, no butter, and like none of those things. Even though you're not eating the actual meat, no dairy, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I like to say plant based because it really meets people where they are,
Mm-hmm.
and plant based really kind of opens things up. So if you're a Mediterranean diet, if you eat, just occasionally you have a piece of fish or you have some shrimp, but you predominantly eat plants, then
Mm-hmm.
you're plant based. So it's more of a plant forward way of saying this is how I eat, and it's more inclusive of where people are than exclusive of where they're not.
Oh.
I'm all about inclusivity when it comes to people eating because that's really how we help to make people see, how they can make changes in their life. If
Mm-hmm.
they're like, "Oh, I got to be vegan," then that kind of just shuts the door for a lot of people. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're like, "No, if you eat meat and you eat a bunch of vegetables, you can still be plant based," they're like, "Oh, okay, I didn't think about that."
Mm-hmm.
So it gives people options and it opens them up to possibilities when we say plant based.
I love
And I'm all about that as a health coach. I embrace this philosophy from one of my schools. We call it bio individuality. And bio individuality just means what's good for you, Kiamani, is may not be good for me.
Ah, true.
One person's food is the other person's poison. Could be.
Mm,
So bio individuality is just where you need to be and me working with you and where you need to be in the process and
mhm,
being open to receiving where you are and supporting you where you are. And
mm.
so as a health coach, that's where we have to be versus no, this is the only way.
Yeah, very rigid.
It's
So it's
very
more
rigid.
fluid. It's more fluid.
Yeah,
Okay,
be
okay.
more fluid.
So again, you offer plant-based meals to go, right?
Mhm.
And then you offer health coaching, and
Yep.
then there does you also offer like a wellness space or
Yeah, that's the Healing Me First Wellness Center. So, and
okay.
you gave them that link. The Healing Me First Wellness Center is a property that I have, and we've turned it into a wellness center. That's actually where I'm at right now.
Beautiful.
And we do beautiful cooking classes there. You can do the health coaching here as well, retreats, you name it. And my focus is busy professionals, entrepreneurs, folks who are really trying to figure out their work-life balance. Kima,
Mhm.
you got to tell them about the YouTube channel too, girl. You got to tell
Oh,
them about
girl,
that.
yes. Wait, did I get the right healingmefirst.com?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
it.
correct? Okay. So yes, tell them about your YouTube channel and your IG.
Yes. So, girl, you better tell them to come on over to this YouTube channel.
Tell
Essentially,
me the
Chef
name so I can put
B.
it in here.
Essentially Chef B with three E's. That's be empowered, energized, and engaged. So remember when I told you that I created that Facebook page and I was just showing folks how to cook and all that? We now are on YouTube. So we have master classes. Matter of fact, Kimani was on my podcast a few weeks back. So you can find that podcast, Healing Me First is the name of the podcast, and she's on there. We also show people how to repurpose food, how to not waste food. We show people a variety of things, how they can really reverse insulin resistance. We just did that master class a few days ago. How can you reverse insulin resistance the plant-based way? So it was myself along with one of our Hello Seven Sistrins, who's a doctor, and we were sharing with people what's really happening in the body, because people just don't know these things. They just don't know.
Mhm.
They think, oh, I'm on medication, my doctor told me that's what I got to do, and that's what I got to do. No, you can do something else. You just have to shift your mindset. So
Mhm.
we have a plethora of content around how to live a plant-based lifestyle, from the master classes where we're showing you different things that you need to incorporate into your diet, to real quick little shorts where we're showing you how to repurpose things, how to not waste food, how to put different things together in the kitchen. I'm showing you what I'm cooking for meal prep. It's just a lot of great content. So guys, go on over to YouTube and subscribe and stay connected to me.
Mhm. Is
And
that
yeah,
right? Did I do it right?
that's it. That's it. And then
Okay.
subscribe to
Subscribe.
subscribe, turn on the notifications, do all the things. I would love to see y'all there. And yeah, please, you can schedule a consultation, healingmefirst.com. You can go there, or you can go to my Calendly link if you'd like. We can send that to them. And if you are a woman, a Black woman that is looking to just eat better, be better, think better, because all of the things that we're talking about, it's resonating with you, then you can reach out. I can help you. I can support you in the wellness piece
Absolutely.
and
So
the
I'll put
business piece.
all of her information in the description section. So I was putting things here and there on the screen, but I'll put everything in the description section. Okay. So Dr. Natasha, I want to read our community because I see that they were very active. So I want to make sure that we respond to their comments and questions. So good evening, sisters. Hello. Side note, love seeing me some Black doctors. I'm glad you love to see that. And I'm very intentional where I was calling Dr. Natasha because as Black women, we get the degrees and all the other kind of things. But sometimes we go in the workplace, people are intimidated by it and they may not acknowledge our credentials. They may question our credentials. So that's why I was very intentional in saying Dr. Natasha. So thank you very much. Good evening, ladies. Great discussion. Thanks for bringing this information to us beautiful ladies. Thank you. This is a very important discussion for us to have out loud and in public. Agreed. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Greetings. I am ABD now and deciding how I'm going to move forward amidst some past advisor trauma. Do you have any words of wisdom you could offer to her?
I think if you can, and I'm not sure what is happening, but see if there are other people on the dissertation committee that will take you on as their student. If
Mm,
you had a good experience with them, see if they'll take you on as their student. So
mm,
that way you're not starting completely from ground zero with someone who doesn't understand the work that you're doing. So I
wow.
would recommend that.
Good, good, good. Thank you. Greetings from California. I'm in California too. High blood pressure, anxiety, depression. Our bodies talk to us and we must listen. Yes, we must
Yes.
listen. So when we say to ourselves, oh, I can't sleep, but I'm going to be okay. Let me take some medicine for that. Or, oh, I might be gaining weight, but that's okay. No, we have to pay attention to that. So we all know the saying, the body keeps score, right? Hey,
Mhm.
everyone, short exit plans are sometimes necessary to protect oneself. Yes, I'm so glad
I
you
love
said that.
that. Yep.
So something that Dr. Natasha, our son, that I work on as well, is helping Black women no matter where you are, right? So an exit plan, you might do like a short-term exit plan, even to another job, right? So
Mhm.
we've talked a lot about entrepreneurship, but it could be if you want to go to another job, okay? So we can support you in that as well. But sometimes it might be a short-term exit plan to get out of the fire because you might be getting burned up in that one situation. You might have a short-term exit plan to go to something else, but short-term while still planning for your longer term. So that was a really
Yep.
good point. Thank you for sharing that. I heard you say fear diminished through network support, taking action, trusting the process, and faith. Excellent. Yes, that was
Yes.
really good. Really good. Howdy from H Town. Much love to everyone. Hello,
Oh.
H Town. Okay, question. What if you have actual intellectual property there, file patents with an entity? How would you weigh out the pros and cons in this situation?
So I actually don't know. I think that's something that you would speak to like a
An
patent
attorney?
lawyer or
Mhm,
a IP lawyer. I'm
mhm,
talking more about because like I think you'll deal more with that like in like labs. So like let's say you were in a computer lab or in a science lab and you're, discovering something, then you might have a patent, but I'm not sure how that works if it's under a grant, if it's grant funded, because usually the way grants work, particularly if it's a large grant, anything that is discovered underneath that umbrella of that grant, I think belongs to the institution because you're essentially using their space to do the work. So your labor in a sense. So they own everything.
mhm,
And so I mean, like I created a summer program. I was a co-founder of a summer program that we had for many years. I can't take that summer program and say, oh, that's my summer program. That belongs to the institution. So
mhm,
I can go and do my own thing, but I can't use that name. I can't use much of what I created there. So those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. Like all the IP that we have, we pour into our institutions,
mhm.
but I'm like, we need to go on ahead and pour that into our own businesses. Like for real.
Agreed. Agreed. And I would co-sign with that, the importance of consulting with an intellectual property attorney, because you want to know what your rights are. Yeah, you just need to be informed. So I would absolutely say go consult with an intellectual property attorney. Question: how to stay motivated when turned down constantly, feeling the exit plan is failing. I want to comment on that, but I want you to go first, Dr. Natasha. How to stay motivated when you get turned down constantly and you feel like the exit plan is failing.
So I
Oh,
think
I'm sorry,
that
she added more. I'm sorry. She said turned down after 8 months of interviews, how to stay motivated.
So I think once again, in terms of these small successes or small wins, we have to create small wins. So if you know for sure that that's someplace that you need to leave, then what is a small win that you can create or a small situation that you can create so that you can stay motivated? You may have to shift how you're doing interviews or where you're actually going to find a new gig.
Mhm,
If
mhm,
those, if the way that you're doing it hasn't worked in 8 months, then what haven't you done? So think
mhm,
about, make a list of all the places you haven't looked for a job and or people that you have not contacted. Have you sent out a bunch of emails to people in your network saying, "Hey, this is something that I'm looking for." Is there some kind of coach that you can hire for a short while to help you with your interviewing skills? There are quite a few things that you might be able to do that you might not be thinking about that can help you with staying on track.
yeah. And I would also add, just like Dr. Natasha talked about, she pivoted to a whole different area. So she has a PhD in math or math education,
Yeah.
but she's pivoted to the wellness space.
Yeah.
So it might be even thinking about is this a field you want to stay in? And if so, looking at all your possible options in that situation and thinking about, do you need some short term, something that not like a job that you want forever, but is there something more shorter term that would get you out of that situation? The other thing is, I think it's important if you're not already in therapy that you're participating in therapy, because you could start feeling defeated and you could start feeling helpless and hopeless. You could just give up with trying to get out of there. So I hope that you have a support system around you in addition to a therapist who can help you through this process. Okay. What is ABD? All but dissertation. So it refers to when you're in graduate school and you've done all the coursework, like you're almost there, but you haven't completed the process with your dissertation. So it's the last hurdle, basically, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Um,
Yeah.
you can't take the IP with you, so intellectual property with you. Once you use the entity's facilities, equipment, etc., and are working as an employee with them, then they are considered as sponsors and possibly co-inventors. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, plan A through E. Even coaching has failed, even with therapy. Will do my best though. Kind of alone in the world, but not other options really. Okay, so it sounds like you have been in therapy, okay?
Mhm.
And I just want to say this. Sometimes we have gone through therapy or we've gone through coaching and it might have felt like this is not working. Sometimes maybe the therapist that you're matched with is not a good fit for you. And so being okay with looking for another therapist and or looking for another coach, because sometimes the coaches that you connect to are not helpful to you. So my hope is that you don't feel defeated, that you keep going, you keep going, you keep going, right? The more you move forward, the small wins that Dr. Natasha talked about, the more you get up and keep looking, something will materialize, but it might take a longer time. And just like Dr. Natasha said, it might mean pivoting and exploring other options as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So, everyone, I want to say again, thank you so much for participating in this discussion. I want to thank my Spelman sister, Dr. Natasha, for being here with me and having this conversation with me. And I just want to remind any Black woman watching this, if you are in a job, if you are in academia, anywhere, and somebody is sending you the message that you are not enough, you need to know that that is a lie. You are more than enough. You are, in fact, so much more than enough that people are probably intimidated by you and they are trying to take you down a notch because they are intimidated by you. But we have to remember that we are more than enough. Let us remember that, okay? Now, I want to say something that I didn't tell Natasha about, but I want to say something too, and I want to give Dr. Natasha the last word, that when we are in work situations or in academia, anywhere you are, and people might be treating you some kind of way, you need to know your own worth. Because when you don't know your own worth, then you're vulnerable. Now you're looking for external validation to say you're good enough. But if you know already that you're good enough, then when people try to treat you like you're less than, then you know that that's them. Okay. And thinking about, do you want to stay in situations where people are treating you as if you're less than? And back to our beloved Spelman College, when I was graduating, my graduation speaker was Oprah Winfrey. And she said that in life, people might try to treat you like a slave girl, but you remember you're a queen girl. And that's what I want
Mhm.
everybody to remember, that we are all queen girls, even though they might try to treat us like we're slave girls. We remember, we know that we are queens and that we will continue to move forward and will continue to find a way. Okay. So, Dr. Natasha, I see you said excellent discussion. Awesome. So, Dr. Natasha, I want to give you the last word. And as a reminder to everyone, if you have not already gotten a replay of the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women, please get the replay, which is in the description section. And guess what? Dr. Natasha was one of our sponsors of the summit too. So happy for that. So, last word to you.
Um, you can do more than you actually may think that you can do. And it's time to bet on yourself.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
so if you're thinking about leaving your job and doing something different, you have nothing to lose. The
Mm.
thing that you have to lose is, dag, I shoulda tried it. I shoulda. You have a regret to lose.
Mm.
You don't want to regret anything. So you can always go back to another job. But if you have a dream and you want to live that dream out, this is the time to do that. Nothing's promised tomorrow. If you want to make a change, now is the time to make
Yeah.
that change. So
Yeah.
I encourage all of you out there, we pray that this message was enough to push some of you to do something a little different.
Mhm.
And for, Lady Blurred, you'll be fine. Just keep going, keep
Yeah.
going, keep going, keep going. Something will open up. Keep
Mhm.
going. It may feel, and sometimes that's how it is. Like breakthroughs are like that. You
Mhm.
going, you going, you going, and then something happens after a
Mhm.
year, or something
Mhm.
happens after all these months. So you're being tested right now to see how diligent, how consistent you're gonna be. So
Mhm.
keep going, keep
Keep
trying.
going.
Your
Yes.
breakthrough is coming. It just is. Okay.
Yes, yes. And I see that she actually said, thank you for the feedback. Best of luck to everyone out there. Thank you so much. And then I see another comment. Yes, I started working for myself again and contracting. I work less and even more that's working full time, right?
Mhm.
So think about what you want for yourself. But what we're saying to you is that as Black women, we have options. We have options, even though it may feel like you don't. We all have options. I see the UK is tuning in. Hello from the UK. Hello. Oh, you make more money. Yes. So, yeah, same for me. I work less, but I make a lot more money than when I was at the toxic job, right? So, just think about that and get the support you need. Okay. Everybody, subscribe to Dr. Natasha's channel, her YouTube channel. Check
Mhm.
out her podcast. Check out the websites, which I'll put in the description
Yes.
section. And for me, if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do so. Give this video a thumbs up, turn the notification bell so you'll know whenever I go live or upload a video, and share this video with at least two other Black women. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So I will see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.